Hello and welcome to the Warlock Hour special, the NHL 2013 Entry Draft recap, so to speak. I'm going to give some points of views, not a lot, but I am going to recap the entire first round of the NHL Entry Draft and focus in on certain teams. I'm going to focus in on all the picks of all the Canadian teams, so that's all 7 teams. I also want to focus in on the people's teams of the network, so to speak. Both myself and James, who do Ehnother Monday, are Toronto Maple Leafs fans, so that's going to be covered when we do the Canadian teams, obviously. However, OJ, who does real music and also works with James on Ehnother Monday, he's a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, so we'll go over the Tampa Bay picks as well. Also, 2 of my guests, both have done some hockey talk. We had Joey in for the playoffs, doing hockey predictions for the playoff rounds. His favorite team's Detroit, so we'll cover that team. And of course, we had our big long chat with Mr. Zach, and Zach did a big sports section with us a couple of months ago, and so we're going to cover his team, who actually had the number 1 overall pick. So, let's get... I'm going to focus on the teams later. Let's get first, I want to do the trades. There were some big trades today, well, at least one in particular. Just going to take a little drink here. I know I just started, but I'm thirsty. Alrighty then. So let's go to the trades that happened at this year's NHL Draft. The biggest trade of the day by far was a shocker to most, and that was the Vancouver Canucks trading not Roberto Luongo, but rather their other goaltender, Corey Schneider, to the New Jersey Devils for the 9th overall pick in the NHL Draft. So that basically means the New Jersey Devils got an elite, well, maybe not elite, but a very good and possible great goalie in Corey Schneider by only giving up a draft pick, basically a crapshoot, because draft picks, well, are very highly prospected, especially in the top 10. They're hit or miss. There's been some even number 1s that have been not so good hockey players and didn't make it in the NHL. Who did they pick at number 9? We'll get to that later when we get to the picks. However, I think Roberto Luongo wanted out of Vancouver, so what does this mean going forward? It's hard to say. Martin Brodeur, who's been the long-time goalie of the New Jersey Devils, won a few cups there. He is going to be 41. Actually, he is 41. He just turned 41 in May. He only has 1 year left on his current contract. Corey Schneider is a young 27-year-old goaltender. Bounced around a little bit before finding his groove in Vancouver. Got a nice 3-year contract, or 3-year contract at $4 million a year. So he's a $4 million salary cap hit, and I think moving Luongo might have been tough due to the cap going down. That's to be sure, but I believe that there's so much more to this that's not obviously being revealed. All I can say on this trade at this time is that I think New Jersey won the deal by getting a proven goalie that could very well be an elite goalie, simply because Corey Schneider not only worked under Roberto Luongo, watching him, having his goalie coach, they both had the same goalie coach, obviously, in Vancouver. He is now going to a team that has excelled in goaltending with Martin Brodeur there. Now, Martin Brodeur, as I said, only has a year left. He's probably not going to see as much playing time this coming season. There's going to be a full season this year, not a half a season. I think that helped Brodeur playing only half a season this year. But I still believe this is definitely a win for New Jersey, but it could go either way. The pick that Vancouver got out of it could turn out to be a superstar player. You never know with picks, and that's why it happens. All right, so let's move on to another trade that was made. The Carolina Hurricanes traded defenseman Jamie McBain and the 35th overall pick in the 2013 NHL Entry Draft to the Buffalo Sabres for defenseman Andre Sekera. So a couple of defensemen changing teams and a pick added to Buffalo's already impressive picks selections in the draft. Now, the Minnesota Wild were a little busier. They made 2 trades. First, the first trade they made was trade. They have dealt the rights to defenseman Justin Falk to the New York Rangers in exchange to the rights for forward Ben Ferrero and a 6th round pick in next year's draft. So these players not necessarily will be signed. They got the right to sign them. Now, usually when a trade like this happens, there's probably going to be an agreement. That's very seldom, although it does happen, where an agreement is not reached with the rights of a player. However, it's very conceivable that both these players will be signed. They're not elite players, but the Wild traded away their defenseman to get a pick next year and a defenseman this year. Also, they traded Cal Clutterbuck to the New York Islanders in exchange for forward Nino Niederreiter, and the Islanders also get the Wild's 70th pick in this year's 2013 NHL Entry Draft. So Cal Clutterbuck is now a New York Islander, and Nino Niederreiter is now a Minnesota Wild. So those are the trades that were made. One more trade, and I left it for last for a reason. That's because it's my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They traded 3 draft picks, the 51st and the 117th in this year's draft, and their 4th rounder in the 2014 draft to get the Chicago Blackhawks forward Dave Bolland. So Dave Bolland, welcome to Toronto. You are a Ontario native, so playing closer to home. He's from Mimico, Ontario, and last year he scored 7 goals and 7 assists in 35 games. However, his biggest game of the year was Game 6, where he scored the game-winning goal that pushed Chicago over the edge, winning their 2nd Stanley Cup in 4 years. So Dave Bolland, some kind of a grittier player, gets in your face, has some hands, not a goal scorer by any means, but definitely a player that embodies what basically what the Leafs were looking for against Boston. If they had this type of player, maybe they win that series. So good trade, could be. He's 27, he's still young. So we'll have to see. So those are the trades that happened at the draft. So let's get right to the NHL Entry Draft. So with the first overall pick, the Colorado Avalanche sadly chose Nathan MacKinnon. Now I say sadly only because they had a chance to draft a defenseman that not only was rated number 1 at many points throughout the year to be picked number 1, but a defenseman from the Colorado area, and Colorado needs defensemen. Why didn't they pick him? Don't know. They wanted the skilled forward Nathan MacKinnon, who came up huge in some big games. I mean, he scored a hat trick at the World Juniors. He scored a hat trick to win the Memorial Cup. The guy can score, and I mean, maybe that's what Colorado saw. Now I hear rumors that he's going to be on the 3rd line to start the year. They're already predicting this to start the season. Nathan MacKinnon's going to be on the 3rd line center in Colorado. So what happens as preseason gets underway in September and training camps and all that will have to remain to be seen. But Nathan MacKinnon of the Halifax Mooseheads from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League is your 1st overall pick by the Colorado Avalanche. Your 2nd pick, held by the Florida Panthers, went to the Finns, and they chose Alexander Barkov from the Liga in Finland. And he's a centerman as well. So 2 centermen go 1-2 in the draft. Your 3rd overall pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning, OJ's own Tampa Bay Lightning, draft Jonathan Drouin of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, teammate of Nathan MacKinnon. So both of them have a Memorial Cup win under their belt, and he'll be joining a team where he'll be setting up the players, the likes of Steven Stamkos. Yes, there could be a lot of scoring in Tampa next year. However, do they get anybody to stop the puck? That will remain to be seen there. All right, so 4th overall, Nashville Predators, laughing, chuckling, so happy. Why? Because Seth Jones falls all the way to number 4 and falls into the laps of the Nashville Predators, who now have a great tandem once again. Shea Weber and Seth Jones, guaranteed to be teammates or line mates. I would guess this upcoming season, Seth Jones a prominent defenseman, a very good defenseman, and he's going to be a Nashville Predator. Your 5th overall selection from the Swedish Elite League and picked up by the Carolina Hurricanes, Elias Lindholm. He's a centerman, as I said, from the Swedish Elite League. Number 6 overall was by the first Canadian team on the board today. The Calgary Flames select center Sean Monahan from the Ottawa 67s of the Ontario Hockey League. And right behind them, provincial rivals Edmonton Oilers pick up a defenseman, finally a defenseman, after drafting so many forwards in the last 3-4 years in the first round with high picks. They pick up a defenseman, Mr. Darnell Nurse of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds of the Ontario Hockey League. So this is definitely a step in the right direction for the Edmonton Oilers, who's drafted so many forwards, but didn't have anybody young and upcoming on the back end that much, and now they draft Darnell Nurse, probably rated the second best defenseman behind Seth Jones in this year's draft. So moving on, we have the 8th selection by the Buffalo Sabres. They went to the Finnish League as well, and they drafted defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen of the Finnish League, SM Liga. And so there's another defenseman off the board. 3 defensemen in the top 10. 2 more picks to go in the top 10, but I can tell you those were the only 3 in the top 10. At number 9, trade, as I said, the Vancouver Canucks traded into the 9th spot by trading Corey Schneider to the New Jersey Devils, and they got Bo Hovart, a center for the London Knights. So he played alongside Seth Jones, alongside the player I want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, Mr. Max Domi. And they went to the Memorial Cup this year. They had a good year. But Bo Hovart of the London Knights goes to the Vancouver Canucks in number 9. And rounding out the top 10, but we're still going to go all 30 teams, or all 30 picks, not necessarily 30 teams. And the 10th pick, the top 10, rounding out the top 10 was the Dallas Stars, and they went to the KHL, Moscow Dynamo, the Russian right-winger Valery Nikushkin. I think I got it. What? Or Nahushkin? No, it's Nikushkin. It's got to be Nikushkin. Hope that's pronounced right. I'm pretty sure he's not listening, so it doesn't matter if I got it wrong. Alright, so moving on into the 11th spot. Philadelphia Flyers select from the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League defenseman Samuel Moret. And so Philadelphia helping out their back end because, you know, they always have goalie troubles. And Phoenix Coyotes ruin my day, and they draft Max Domi, centerman from the London Knights of the Ontario Hockey League. Max Domi is now a Phoenix Coyote. Phoenix Coyotes have drafted sons of players in the last few drafts, and this year was no different as they draft Max Domi, the guy I said the Toronto Maple Leafs need to get or they fail this draft. So, have they failed this draft? We'll have to see. I think that it is a big failure. I am very disappointed that the Toronto Maple Leafs did not trade up to get this kid. I said they needed to trade up into probably the top 10, at least the top 15, and I was right because he was selected 12th overall. So they could have got into the top 10. I'm very disappointed that the Leafs did not get Max Domi. I wanted Max Domi. I needed Max Domi to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, and it's disappointing that he's not. So, moving on, the Winnipeg Jets. Before I move on to the Winnipeg Jets, I just want to say that Phoenix Coyotes are the former Winnipeg Jets. They moved from Winnipeg to Phoenix, and then Atlanta became the new Winnipeg Jets. Well, the old Winnipeg Jets, which was the Phoenix franchise, Max Domi's father, Ty Domi, did play for. Ty Domi is a tough guy. Max Domi's a scorer, and it would have been nice to have a scorer Domi on the Toronto Maple Leafs. But he does have a connection to the Phoenix Coyotes in that Ty Domi did play for the Winnipeg Jets. So, Max Domi unfortunately went to the old Winnipeg Jets, which is now the Phoenix Coyotes, and moving on to the now new Winnipeg Jets, formerly the Atlanta Thrashers. They draft defenseman Josh Morrissey from Prince Albert Raiders of the Western Hockey League. Moving on to the 14th pick, held by the Columbus Blue Jackets. They moved over to the Swedish league, and they drafted Alexander Wenberg, a centerman from, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the city, but from Sweden. Alright, so moving to the 15th pick, held by the New York Islanders, they go to the Western Hockey League and draft defenseman Ryan Pulock of the Brandon Wheat Kings. So that's your top 15. I'm just going to take a little break here for a second. Alright, I just had to take another drink, and it was a little bit of a long one. I was trying to clear up my voice there. Okay, so moving on, we are at the 16th pick in the first round, and I'm only doing the first round recap. Buffalo Sabres draft defenseman Nikita Zadorov from the London Knights of the Ontario Hockey League. With the 17th pick, the Ottawa Senators draft right winger / center, or forward if you would like, Curtis Lazar from the Edmonton Oil Kings of the Western Hockey League. With the 18th overall pick, the San Jose Sharks select Mirko Mueller, a defenseman from the Everett Silvertips of the Western Hockey League. The Columbus Blue Jackets hold the 19th pick, so they had a couple of picks here in the first round, and they draft the left winger Kirby Reichel of the Windsor Spitfires from the Ontario Hockey League. The Detroit Red Wings, who traded down a bit earlier in the year, they draft left winger Anthony Mantha from the Val d'Or, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that because I'm not French, from the Val d'Or Quebec Major Junior Hockey League team. And here come my Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, as I said, I wanted them to get Max Domi. They didn't get Max Domi. I'm very disappointed. However, they were smart, and they did draft a centerman that they needed, a big centerman, 6'4", I think it was, from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League in the Rimouski Oceanic. They drafted Frédéric Gauthier, center from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and at least they drafted a center. I guess that's all I can say, but again, I'm very disappointed. With the 22nd overall pick, the Calgary Flames, with their second of 3 first-round picks, they draft left winger Émile Poirier of the Gatineau Olympique of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. With the 23rd pick overall, the Washington Capitals select Andrei Burakovsky from the Swedish 2 League, Malmo Redhawks, Swedish League. Vancouver Canucks, 24th overall pick, Hunter Shinkaruk. Not sure if I'm saying that right. Again, I'm not sure he's listening, so it doesn't really matter. He's a winger from the Medicine Hat Tigers of the Western Hockey League. The Montreal Canadiens draft Michael McCarron, right winger from the Western Michigan Broncos of the Collegiate... It's the CCHA. I think it's the Central Collegiate Hockey Association, if I'm not mistaken. With the 26th overall pick, the Anaheim Ducks select defenseman Shea Theodore of the Seattle Thunderbirds of the Western Hockey League. The Columbus Blue Jackets, another pick, I believe this is their third pick in the first round. They select from Slovakia and the Russian KHL League, Marko Dano, right winger. And with the 28th pick, the third pick for the Calgary Flames, they draft Morgan Klimchuk, left winger from the Regina Pats of the Western Hockey League. And 29th overall, Dallas Stars has this selection, and they chose centerman Jason Dickinson of the Guelph Storm of the OHL. And finally, rounding out the first round, the Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks draft right winger Ryan Hartman of the Plymouth Whalers of the Ontario Hockey League. So that, my friends, is the entire first round. Now, as I said, I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, so I just want to take a look at Frédéric Gauthier, the player that the Leafs selected. He has 1 year under his belt at the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League level, which means he could return there this year unless he proves himself and makes it to the Marlies. As I said, he's a 6'4" center, 6'5", around there. He's 18 years old. He's 214 pounds. He was ranked in the top 10 for forwards in the league. Obviously, drafted 22nd. Last year, his points were 22 goals, 38 assists in 62 games played. He also had a plus 22 and had 26 penalty minutes. He played in 6 playoff games with 2 assists and 2 penalty minutes. So it's not much to go on. He hasn't played a lot. A lot of his playing was in junior. He was expected to go to Harvard. Hopefully he doesn't, because it means he's not going to be a Leaf. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Alright, so as I said, I was going to focus on some teams' picks. I just want to go through them pretty quickly. I might make some comments. We'll see as we get through. So we're going to start with my friend Zach's team, the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado Avalanche, as I said, had the first overall pick. They drafted Nathan MacKinnon from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So let's see how they did the rest of the draft. They drafted a ton of defensemen. Now, I bash them for not taking Seth Jones. However, they made up for it by selecting not a single forward the rest of the way. The rest of their picks are not forwards and mostly defensemen. So let's go to their second round selection. They selected Chris Begras of the Ontario Hockey League, Owen Sound, defenseman, 32nd overall pick. With their third round pick, the 63rd overall pick, they draft goaltender Spencer Martin of the Mississauga. I'm not going to say the team name because I think it's the Ice Dogs, but I'm not sure. And that's from the OHL anyways. With their fourth round selection, 93rd overall pick, they draft defenseman Mason Geertsen of the Western Hockey League. With their fifth round pick, draft another defenseman. With the 123rd overall pick, Will Butcher of the United States Hockey League, the USHL, from the USA Under-18 team. He's now 18, otherwise he would not be allowed in the NHL. Or he'll be 18 by, I think, September 1st or something like that. With their sixth round pick, 153rd overall, Ben Storm of the USHL. And with their final pick, 183rd overall, Wilhelm Westland of the Swedish Elite League, or Swedish Junior League. Again, as I said, defensemen. So they drafted one center, which was Nathan MacKinnon, and then they went on to draft 5 defensemen and a goalie the rest of the way. So they are worried about their defense, but not worried enough to draft Seth Jones. They drafted Nathan MacKinnon instead. So let's move on to another guest of mine, the Detroit Red Wings, and Joey's favorite team, and let's see how they did in the draft. A draft in which they haven't selected before, I think. They had a higher pick, which they swapped picks with San Jose. They ended up dropping down to 20th overall, but normally they draft in the bottom 10 as opposed to the top 20 of the first round, or sometimes not at all in the first round, because they are very good at scouting and they can draft those later players that turn into some great players. They're very good at developing. I've always said that about the Detroit Red Wings. They've always been good at developing players. Well, let's see how they do this year. So with the first round selection, as I said earlier, 20th overall pick, they drafted from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, Anthony Manta, right winger, I believe. Yes, right winger from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, 20th overall. In the second round, they had the 48th overall pick, where they selected Zach Nastasiuk of the Owen Sound Ontario Hockey League, another right winger. Then, also in the second round, 58th overall, they selected a current hockey player, Todd Bertuzzi, who may or may not play next year, but it's his nephew they pick up, left winger Tyler Bertuzzi of the Guelph Storm of the Ontario Hockey League. I had to think there for a second. I should know the Ontario Hockey League. I live in Ontario. Anyways, moving on. In their third round, with the 79th overall pick, they select centerman Matthias Janmark Nyland of the Swedish Elite League. With their 109th overall pick in the fourth round, they select David Pope, a left winger from the British Columbia Hockey League. With the 139th pick, 5th round, defenseman Mitchell Wheaton of the Western Hockey League. With the 169th pick, 6th round, Mark McNulty, defenseman from the Western Hockey League. And with their final pick, 199th overall, Hampus Mellon of the Swedish Junior League. He's a right winger. So those are Detroit's picks. Let's move on to OJ's team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and see how they made out with their draft choices. They only had, which I believe of the teams that I'm going to mention, the smallest amount of picks, with 6. They traded away a lot of their mid-round picks, so they had a couple of early rounds and then a few late rounds. So, with the first round pick, 3rd overall, Jonathan Drouin of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, left winger, and he will be setting up players as far as Stamkos, even St. Louis, who's a pretty good setup man himself, but he'll be setting up a lot of players in Tampa, and I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in Tampa Bay next year. Again, can they stop the puck? Let's see if they draft a goalie. With the 33rd overall pick in the 2nd round, they draft left winger Adam Erne of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. With the 124th pick overall, so that means from pick 33 all the way to a pick 124 in the 5th round, they had nothing. But they picked up a goalie. Goaltender Kristers Gudluskis of the Russian Junior League. Again, he's going to be a developmental player for sure because drafted so late, and he's from the Russian Junior League, which means he'll probably be playing over there or on a team, maybe a minor league team over here, depending on how it works, before he'll ever make it to the Tampa Bay Lightning. With the 154th pick in the 6th round, they draft Ari Ikonen of the Ontario Hockey League, a Finnish guy. With the 184th pick in the 7th round, they select Saku Salminen, a centerman from the Finland 2 League. And with their final pick, 186th overall, also in the 7th round, Joel Verman, a right winger from the Swiss League. So that's your Tampa Bay Lightning scores. So let's move on to those ever-present Canadian hockey teams. Sorry for the congestion, folks, tonight. I'm not feeling 100%, but we're going to plow through it and hopefully get through. Okay, so Vancouver, as I said, in the 1st round had 2 picks. They drafted Bo Horvat after trading Corey Schneider, a centerman from the Ontario Hockey League, and 24th overall, Hunter Shinkaruk of the Western Hockey League, and he's also a centerman / winger. So let's move on to the next picks. 85th overall in the 3rd round, Cole Castles of the Ontario Hockey League, centerman. With the 115th overall pick in the 4th round, Jordan Subban, defenseman of the Ontario Hockey League, and yes, you're wondering, he is related to the Subbans who are already in the NHL or making their way there. 145th overall, 5th round pick, Anton Cederholm of the Swedish Junior League. 175th overall, 6th round, defenseman Mike Williamson of the AJHL. Also, just to let you know, Jordan Subban and Anton Cederholm are also defensemen. 205th overall, 7th round, Miles Liberati, defenseman from the Ontario Hockey League. We'll move from the west to the east, and we'll go into the Calgary Flames draft choices. I'm just going to rush through their 1st round picks because they had 3 of them. As we said, 6th overall, Sean Monahan. 22nd overall, Emile Poirier. 28th overall, Morgan Klimchuk. So, moving on to the rest of their picks. 67th overall, 3rd round, Keegan Kanzig of the Western Hockey League. 135th overall, 5th round, Eric Roy of the Western Hockey League, or Eric Roy, depending on if he's English or French. He's Canadian, so he could be either or. Both those players are defensemen. 157th overall, 6th round, Tim Harrison, right winger from the from the U.S., I believe College League. I think. I'm not sure. This league name I've never seen before. So he's from the U.S. Dexter Preparatory Academy. I mean, I'm guessing it's a elite hockey league. I didn't even know whatever. Moving on. 187th overall, 7th round, Rushan Ravikov of the Russian Junior League, defenseman. 198th overall, 7th round, defenseman John Gilmore. He's from the H East League, which is, I believe, a United States league. And he's also a defenseman. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. So that's your Calgary Flames choices. So moving on to their provincial rivals, the Edmonton Oilers. And the Edmonton Oilers had quite a few picks in this year's draft. As I said before, their first round pick, 7th overall, Darnell Nurse. Moving on from there, 56th overall, Marc-Olivier Roy of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, center. 83rd overall, 3rd round, centerman Bogdan Yakimov from the Russian Junior League. 88th overall, so 5 picks later, also in the 3rd round, Anton Slepyshev, left winger from the Russian League. Not the Junior League. The Junior League was the Yakimov, Bogdan Yakimov. 94th overall, 4th round, Jackson Hook of the Western Hockey League. 96th overall, 4th round, Kyle Platzer, centerman of the Ontario Hockey League. Jackson, by the way, was a right winger. 113th overall, 4th round, Aiden Muir, a winger from the Midwest. What hockey league is that? Midwest. I know it's Midwest something. Midwest. Oh, it's gonna bug me now. Just give me a second here. I'm gonna look it up. Midwest Elite Hockey League. It's a U.S. league, obviously in the Midwest. All right. So, sorry, it was bugging me because I actually knew it, but I didn't know it. I knew part of it. 128th overall, 5th round, left winger Evan Campbell of the British Columbia Hockey League. 6th round, 158th overall, Ben Betker, defenseman from the Western Hockey League. 7th round, 188th overall, with their final pick, Gregory Chase, center/winger from the Western Hockey League. So that's pretty much the West. We've got one more West Coast team, the Winnipeg Jets. Even though they're not technically in the West, they're kind of central located, but they are in the Western Conference. So they had quite a few picks as well in this year's draft. First pick, as I said, 13th overall, Joshua Morrissey. So let's move on. Second round, 43rd overall, Nicholas Petan, centerman of the Western Hockey League. 29th overall, also a second round pick, Eric Comrie, goaltender from the Western Hockey League. Third round, 84th overall, James Lodge, a centerman from the Ontario Hockey League. Also in the third round, 91st overall, J.C. Lepone, right winger from the Western Hockey League. Fourth round, 104th overall, Andrew Kopp of the Central Collegiate Hockey Association, the CCHA. Fourth round, 114th overall, Jan Kostelek of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Fifth round, 127th overall, Tucker Poolman of the USHL. I believe, can't remember what the S stands for. Oh well, Hockey League, United States Hockey League, I think it is. Just US Hockey League. Seventh round, 190th overall, Brendan Kitchton, defenseman from the Western Hockey League. And I'm sorry, I don't think I said Tucker's position, it was defenseman. Also, Jan Kostelek was defenseman. I'm not sure if I mentioned his. I've been skipping parts here. It's late. That's why I'm trying to get this out. Also in the 7th round, 194th overall pick with their last pick in this year's draft, Marcus Karlstrom of the Swedish Junior League, defenseman. So that's the Winnipeg Jets picks. Let's move on to some Eastern Conference Canadian teams, and we'll start with my most hated team, the Ottawa Senators. So the Ottawa Senators had a few draft picks, Not as much as the last two teams, but they still had a few. First round, as I said, 17th overall, Curtis Lazar. Then they didn't have a pick till 78th overall. In the third round, Marcus Hogberg, goaltender from the Swedish Junior League. Fourth round, 102nd overall, Tobias Lindberg of the Swedish Junior League. Boy, they like their Swedes in Ottawa, don't they? Fourth round, 108th overall, Ben Harpur, of a defenseman from the Ontario Hockey League. Also, that second Swede was a right winger. I said the first Swede was a goalie, but the second one was a right winger. Fifth round, 138th overall, Vincent Dunn, a centerman from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Sixth round, 161st overall, Chris LeBlanc, a right winger from the EJHL. Sixth round, 168th overall, and the Ottawa Senators' last pick in this year's draft, Quentin Shore, centerman from the WCHA, which I believe is the West Coast Hockey Association. I think. I could be wrong. Moving on to the Montreal Canadiens, because I'm going to wrap it up with the Toronto Maple Leafs, as they are my favorite team, and also James's. Alright, so for the Montreal Canadiens, they had 3 second-round picks, but let's just recap their first-round pick, even though it's already been mentioned with the first-round recap. 25th overall, Michael McCarron, right winger from the USHL. Second round, 34th overall, Jacob Delarose, left winger from Sweden 2 League. Second round, 36th overall, so 2 picks later, Zachary Fucal, goaltender from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Excuse me. Second round, 55th overall, Arturi Lekkonen, yes, from the Finnish leagues. League, take off the S, whatever. Third round, 71st overall, Connor Crisp, left winger from the OHL. Sorry, Artur was also a left winger. I keep forgetting the position. Third round, 86th overall, right winger, Sven Andrighetto from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I'm gonna guess that he's not from... It doesn't... CHE, is that... I don't know where that is. Moving on. Fourth round, 116th overall. Left winger, Martin Riwe of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Sixth round, 176th overall. Jeremy Gregoire, center from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And final Canadian team. The final team we're going to recap the picks for. My Toronto Maple Leafs, James's Toronto Maple Leafs, maybe your Toronto Maple Leafs, after trading away a few picks to get Dave Bolin, only had 5 picks in this year's NHL Entry Draft. First round, as I said, disappointed. To quote a movie, disappointed! 21st overall, Frédéric Gauthier of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Then no picks till the third round. 82nd overall, Carter Verheeg, centerman from the Ontario Hockey League. Fifth round, 142nd overall. Long wait between those two picks. Fabrice Herzog of the Swiss Junior League. Sixth round, 172nd overall. Antoine Bibeau, goaltender from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Seventh round, their final pick in the draft. 202nd overall. Andreas Johnson, left winger from the Swedish Junior League. So those are your Canadian team picks. Those are the team picks for favorites of our shows. Guests Joey, guest Zach, hosts OJ and James. And James is the same as mine, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, grading them is hard unless you're a scout. We're not scouts, so I'm not going to grade them. However, I am very quietly, hugely, majorly, totally disappointed in the Toronto Maple Leafs that they did not do everything in their power to get Max Domi. I wanted Max Domi to be a Toronto Maple Leaf very badly. I believe that they screwed... Look, I don't know what happens on the draft floor. Maybe they did try to trade up and just couldn't get the deal that suited them, or they couldn't get a team that would have, traded with them to get up there, because probably every team out there knew the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to try and trade up to get Max Domi. But in saying that, you have to make some things happen. And I really think that Notice failed to get it done. No matter what happened, he failed to get it done. You have to make some deals to get players like a Max Domi, and he didn't get it done. And now Phoenix has got a very good player that, you know what? The fact that he plays for Phoenix won't bother me. I am going to follow this kid's career because he's going to be a good hockey player. And I'm a fan of Max Domi, and I will be a fan of Max Domi no matter where he plays. However, my heart still lies with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and at least, as I said, at least they drafted a centerman that could be a centerman in a couple of years' time for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that is very good news. I hope you enjoyed this little recap. It's gone on a little longer than I thought it would. There was a lot of things to cover. A few trades went on. I like doing these updates because even though it's not Wednesday and you're probably listening to Ehnother Podcast, and if you're not, go ahead and listen to it after. But I needed to get this special out because I like to keep up to date. And waiting till Wednesday would have just made the show so much longer. So doing these nice little segments is very cool. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. I hope you have a great week. Remember to listen to all the podcasts here on the network. Wrapping it up, so I'm just trying to remember. We got Another Monday, of course, with Another Podcast. Real Tuesday with Real Music. Warlock Wednesdays with the Warlock Hour. And don't forget, we're always looking for more and looking to put out more content, and I'm sure there will be more content as we go forward. And I'm just hoping that you continue to listen and you enjoy the shows and come back every week, because we do shows every week. We do this for you, the fans. We also do it because we enjoy doing it. So if you're listening, great. Bring on some friends. Let other people listen. Maybe they want to know some news, know some geek news. I do some pretty good movie segments on mine. We have on Real Music, there's Superhero Power Hour. I always love listening to that. On you never know what you're going to hear on Another Podcast. It's everything. It's a hodgepodge. But you know what? We're doing it because we love it, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you guys are always listening and enjoying yourselves, even when I rant and moan and whine like I am with the Max Domi thing. I'm still very disappointed. I'll probably be mentioning it again on Wednesday, so you'll probably hear me again then. But, Toronto did trade for Dave Bolin. They got Jonathan Bernier earlier last week, so I mean, sheesh. I just really wanted Max Domi. So that wraps up this special. I hope you enjoyed it again. Come back every week. We have shows, and you know what? When I got some special stuff to do, we'll put it out there. It doesn't matter what day it is. We'll put it out there. If it's really special, if it's really big, put it out there. All right? So keep listening. Have a great week. I'm out. Thanks for listening to Another Podcast from ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.